particular lot.
We got some.
Today, they're not even arguing, or the ZA is over here. Actually, there's a variance, right? From what?
Okay, it's 3 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. Do you have the roll call, Kathy?
Yes, I do.
Okay. If y'all will stand, and we're going to say the pledge and give an invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Paula, you want to lead us in prayer?
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the beautiful weather we've been having, for the rain that we've had. We pray that you will be with each one of us as we go through this meeting today. May the decisions that we make be the best for our community and meet approval in your sight. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, first item on the agenda be questions and comments from citizens, and this would be questions and comments not directly related to the agenda item that we have.
I would like to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, well, do we have any questions or comments, general questions or comments?
About what we're deciding today?
No, no, not about what we're deciding today. We'll have,
The last minutes, the minutes from the last meeting.
okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
Who was the second? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. Okay, we consider and take appropriate action on a request for a variance to a 50-foot lot size requirement for a manufactured home, and a variance to the side yard setback at 801 South McGee, lot W 10 and 11, and all of 12, block 12, Isom addition. Okay, everyone that wishes to talk concerning this agenda item, would you stand and raise your right hand? So we just had 2? Okay. Do those who plan to give testimony before this board affirm that such testimony will be the truth? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, you want to fill us in, Larry?
Yes, so Mr. James J. came to me a while back, and he had purchased the property at 801 South McGee. The McGee side is the length of that lot because it's on a corner. When that lot was originally platted, it was actually, I think, platted with a 25-foot width, but later 10 feet or so was added onto that. I guess maybe 15 foot was added onto that, which made it a 40-foot lot. In our ordinance, you had to have a 50-foot lot to build on. I do want to apologize to the board today because after reviewing the ordinance states that if the law was in existence prior to this zoning requirement, then they were, and I'll read it to you, and it's section 1404.003, lot width. Except that a lot having less width than herein required, which was an official lot of record prior to the adoption of this chapter, may be used as a one-family dwelling, and no lot existing at the time of passage of this chapter shall be reduced in width below the minimum set forth therein. So his lot was already in existence. So he doesn't need the variance for the 50-foot width. He does still need a variance for the side yard, which would be between him and his neighbor on Monroe Street. His intentions is to put a 32-foot wide manufactured house on that property.
And that's a double wide, right?
Correct. And so to get the front yard setback, which being that the McGee side is the side yard, there's a 5-foot requirement there. And so he needs a variance one side or the other, and I kind of felt like looking at the property next door, the better of the two would be to ask for a side yard variance to the side yard between his neighbor on Monroe. Keep in mind, visualize this is a corner lot on McGee and Monroe, okay?
Yeah.
Because I know I'm saying a lot and could be confusing to some of you. So, so you see the yellow box there, and so,
I don't have a yellow box.
We don't have a yellow box.
okay, I apologize.
Yours is the yellow on the picture?
It's 801, it's be the right-hand side of
Okay.
that.
Yeah, we were just looking at this.
417,
We were
801,
just looking at that.
417 Monroe and 801 McGee.
It's on the last page.
Very last page back,
Oh, okay, it's on there. No, it isn't.
okay.
You didn't get one?
Yeah, I got
Yeah,
it.
okay. Did you get that, Polly?
So, keep in mind that
Well, I don't see it, but very last page. Of the stapled together packet.
the only variance that, Mr. Jetty needs today is the side yard variance. And that's what y'all's board is dealing with. Later, he will have to ask for a specific use permit through planning and zoning, and ultimately city council for, the permit to move in a manufactured house. And I say that because I know that we have some audience here that is against what Mr. Getty wants to do. And these people have invested in their property over there, they've bricked their home and done several other projects, and it is nice over there. And I say that, but we're here today to only deal with the variance. And so, I mean, I can't stop y'all from speaking today, but y'all's fight is really gonna be at the next meeting.
Well, not necessarily, and I'll speak to the council.
Okay. So, does the
So
board
do we
any
have
questions?
anybody here that actually lives at 417 Monroe?
No.
Okay.
And
So that would be the property adjacent to that we would really need to setback with. Have they been contacted?
Yes, we have a map, your deal. Looks like
And I have
that.
something
Yeah.
to say about that, please. It's a rental property, but how much time is the homeowner supposed to be given from the council to respond to these meetings? Our letters were mailed out on May the 17th. We got a letter on May the 19th, and the meeting was today.
We didn't have this meeting was scheduled.
So if the meeting had already been scheduled, why did y'all not give us enough time so
Well,
all the
I mean-
neighbors involved could come in?
They were, I mean, for what we had, the time is what the letters went out. Because he came in, his meeting for his P and Z is for the 24th, and we didn't find out until before that he was gonna need that side yard, and I sent him out as soon as I could.
So maybe this meeting should have been postponed till next month, or
So-
within 10 days. Because all the people I spoke to yesterday, all the letters you have of all the neighbors in the neighborhood for objecting this, just found out yesterday evening, late in the evening. A bunch of them didn't get the letters. Miss Kathy actually gave me a copy of the papers that they were supposed to sign
Well,
so they could protest.
I had two citizens that called in and said they approved.
And then those two citizens changed their mind when they realized what it meant to our neighborhood.
And I wrote those on the deal.
And you wrote, and so they sent the letters up here that they had changed their mind. And for the reasons that we are protesting it too.
They're supposed to be standing up there when you're talking.
Okay.
Their protest has been documented on a map that we have here.
Yes, sir.
Larry, I have a question. How, with the 5-foot setback, how close to the property line will we be?
So with knowing what he wants to do, which is a 32-foot wide manufactured house, then once you put 32 wide on that 40-foot lot, you got 8 foot left. There's a 5-foot setback requirement in the front. There would have been a 5-foot side yard setback because it's living space as well. So that's why he's asking for the variance from 5 to 3 on that one, on the back side.
So we'll still have 3 foot between it and the property line of the neighbor.
Yes, sir.
And normally, it's just required to have a 5-foot,
Correct.
correct? So we're looking at 2 foot difference then.
Correct.
Now, are we talking about, you know, when you're talking about a manufactured home, my middle daughter and her family live in a manufactured home that's a whole lot nicer than a lot of the houses in Borger, America, I'll guarantee you.
Yes, sir. We
And I
looked
want
into
to
that.
know if that's what this is or if this is a trailer house.
No, he's having it built.
It's a double wide. I've lived in a double wide. I
Yeah.
know. They're
But
nice.
They're very nice. They run anywhere from $180,000 to $250,000 because we looked into it for my son. The problem isn't how beautiful they are, it's how fast they deteriorate, no matter how much you upkeep them. If you go around our neighborhood, we've got pictures. They had just installed a brand-new one on Lee Street, I think, down from McGee, down from where we live. It burnt. Statistics show that a manufactured home, whether it's a single wide, a double wide, in case of a fire, burns completely down within 10 minutes. This comes from government statistics. In 1976, they were actually built worse. HUD came in and required better guidelines, better codes. Yet even though they did that, they're great, they're beautiful. They still have a higher deterioration rate. And right now, my house, like Mr. Burt said, we've invested a lot of money in our house, my son's house. There's a little lot in the middle. I used to own that property. There's a single wide trailer house in there. When we sold it, it was with the understanding if they ever wanted to sell it back to us. Well, the person who bought it had people move in and rent it. There was a constant turnaround. It got so deteriorated, he finally evicted his tenants. He wanted to sell it to me for a lot more than what I had sold it to him after 10 years, and it was very deteriorated. The people who were living there actually told me not to bother talking to him. They had already bought it and were staying. I believed him because they'd been my neighbors for almost 10 years. Turns out he sells it to his niece, but his niece can't move in for almost 2 months because there's holes on the floor, because they do deteriorate a lot faster. Unfortunately, because of the winds we have here, most manufactured homes now are made to withstand winds from 74 miles per hour up to 150 miles per hour. Okay? We get winds here all the time. And Mr. Jetty, I commend you for wanting to take care of your mother, because I took care of my mom. But you have to understand where I'm coming from. Every trailer house in that neighborhood are manufactured homes. We have pictures. People bought them, they were beautiful, they upkept them, then they changed their minds. Hopefully your mom will survive a long time. I don't know if you're married. But if you do get married, or you are married, your wife may decide she doesn't like living in a manufactured home, because I don't care how nice you tie it down with Texas winds.
Well,
And hell,
marriage isn't an issue.
yeah,
And we
No.
are in wind zone 1.
and,
I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've lived in Texas for
yes.
almost 20 years. I know
And
about
I
winds.
grew up here. I was born and raised in the Texas Panhandle. And I was raised on a farm, and we had trailer houses, and we had to replace for the workers. We had to replace them pretty often, because mostly the most damaging done here is.
Would you address the board,
Yes.
not
The most
specifically
damaging
him?
wind down here, the most damage done here comes from hail, and we get big hail, okay? The house I live in now is now bricked. But before we bricked it, it had almost inch siding. And the wind and the hail would tear it up and tear it up. It finally got so bad looking, because we were in the process of fixing this home.
But you have to understand where I'm coming from, like Mr. Bird explained to you, we've invested a lot of money in our neighborhood, and we want to keep investing money in our neighborhood. Prefabricated homes are actually not considered real property. They're considered personal property, like your car or my car, because they can be moved. Once they leave the lot, they can lose up to 50% of their value, their resale value, just because they are a manufactured home. There's two beautiful manufactured homes, double wide,
Once
here in
again,
Borger.
Board, I remind you that we're here for the variance only
Yeah.
and not for
The variance,
permitting of
yeah.
the manufacturer.
The variance that you're talking about is how close he's gonna be to the property next door. And my concern is a fire danger. Any fire, and that thing will burn down in 10 to 15 minutes. And a big fire with the wind blowing here can cause a huge fire in the neighborhood. That's what the variance can make a difference in too, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Thank
Can I
you.
say something? It seems to me that whether or not we grant a variance is moot, depending upon what the other board decides. I make a motion that we table this and let this all be fought out with the other board as to whether or not.
Well, the way that's gonna work is that if they don't get the variance, then it's a moot point to go to the other board, basically. In other words, what our decision basically determines what the outcome of whether or not it goes to the other board. If they don't get the variance, then they don't get to anywhere with it. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay.
They have to have the variance first.
So in saying that, I will add that the strategic priorities that the city council has set for this community and voted on by the public was to relax regulations, was one of the things that they wanted to see. Not for everything, but to promote revitalization in older neighborhoods. And in my opinion, that's what this does, is fits that priority. So, I mean, other than that, you know, it is my recommendation that y'all approve the side yard variance, but y'all are the board and that's.
You want to come up and tell us what your intentions are and
Well, like stated, it's going to be a 2020 or 2021. It's going to be custom built because I have to have it where it's going to be handicap accessible. My mom's 73 years old. She's been a waitress in Las Vegas. She retired from the Flamingo. So as a tall person, she's had 3 knee surgeries, 2 feet. So I'm going to have something that's going to be semi-custom built for wheelchair access and everything else. And this is a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home. So it's gonna be a home that if I'm ready to sell, it will sell fairly quickly because there's not very many multi-bathroom homes in the city of Borger, especially not when we're talking 3 full baths. It's not gonna be partial baths. And it's current HUD standing, so it means it has shingle roofs, everything else. And I'm not looking to have the best yard in the neighborhood. I'm a truck driver. Every week I drive from Cactus, Texas to Oakland, California and back. So I need to have something, I don't have time to revitalize a house. And my mom has been living in a mobile home in Nevada, in rural Nevada. That house was placed in 1996. She's currently has it for sale and it's still in very good shape. Yes, there's been things done to it, but like any home, you have to do repairs and maintenance. And you could build a brand new stick home, and if no one does maintenance on it, it's gonna deteriorate just as quick as a manufactured home. And these manufactured homes are actually built to be transported down the highway. So they're running 50, 60, I've seen some of these guys pull them at 75, 80 miles an hour down the road. So I don't see where the wind, because it is built for this area. One of the things with manufactured homes is, like say someone from here is moving up by Denver, Colorado, they can't get a house that's built for here and take it up there because it has to be built for the area it's going to be in. And that's one thing, these houses are built here. I'm purchasing it out of Amarillo, so it's going to be a house built and designed for this area.
So will your mother be the only resident?
I'll be living there as well, but she's gonna be the full-time resident, and I'm gonna be, when I'm home.
Yeah.
I'm home generally every week, but there's no guarantee.
So what about parking? Larry, is they gonna have to park on the street, or will there be room to
So
to build a
since the lot-
driveway and they'll be able to park, on their property, or?
So since the lot depth is 120 foot, they'll have plenty of distance to,
To maintain a 25-foot setback and still get it in there?
Yeah. And as for the porch, I was probably gonna have to have it set back a little farther on the lot, so we can put the porch there on the McGee side, or on the
Monroe?
side. Because there's a door that faces McGee and a door that faces Monroe. And that's the one that I'll put a porch on, and I'll put the wheelchair lift on it. And probably have parking there, so that my mom doesn't have a far way to go.
Okay. Y'all have any questions for him?
Why did you buy this lot?
Actually, I purchased 2 other lots that I was looking at developing. One's over by Rock Creek Plant, and it would take a lot to develop it.
Absolutely.
And the other one was over, it's too short to put any size of mobile home on it. And I didn't realize that until I started going through and I had a surveyor out there. So that's why we purchased this lot. I'm looking to move, I currently stay in Fridge. The reason we're coming to Borger is it's just a better community and more access to doctors, everything from our own.
Okay.
And that was one of the big reasons for that lot particularly, because it's 5 minutes to United, 5 minutes to the hospital.
Right.
Anything that happens.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Can I
So-
say something else to the board about what he commented?
Say what now?
Can I say something else to him?
Sure.
He's a truck driver. My son's a truck driver, and his mother's gonna be the only one living in the house. Well, one of the reasons manufactured homes deteriorate so fast, he'll be trying to be home every weekend, right? But my son drives trucks, and so does my husband. It's very hard to come home on the weekend and try and get everything done and keep everything up too. It's very, very hard. So it's not just about the house, it's about the yard, it's everything, okay, that we have to consider.
Okay.
Because if him putting a manufactured home, and that's another thing, a manufactured home will reduce our property values, and they do keep a lot of their property value, but not as much as they should.
Do you have any evidence of that at all?
It's all on the internet. We Googled everything, because I didn't want to come up here, but I've got
So, I
pictures.
mean, some places in Borger where they put a manufactured home that actually reduced the property values, or where somebody tried to,
Well, I can show you properties that.
Yeah, there's
Trailer
one-
houses on McGee. There's 4 or 5 of them, and they're all abandoned. One of them actually burned down. I
And it
can
was a
show
new
all
one.
of you pictures if y'all
We've
would
got
like.
pictures of what's already there.
What's already on McGee and not taken care of. We just don't want to lose the value to our homes that we've invested so much
And
time in.
those are trailer
But
houses.
still, once
Yeah.
again, we're talking as a trailer house as opposed to
Well, they're manufactured homes is what they are.
that's just like I could sit out here and build a teepee and it'd be a manufactured home.
Yeah, exactly.
But-
And he talks about how they're building it on site. A double wide built on site is completely built on the inside. And what they consider building it on site is when they come and put it together and finish up the inside. It's already built at the factory. They come off an assembly line.
I have pictures here if y'all like to see them. I'll
yeah,
show y'all my-
I understand. Now, I don't need to see them, We're familiar with the area. So, I do have some concerns with the 3 foot between the 2 lots. And this is my opinion, and I'm going to express it to the board. If there were a fire, That's a very narrow area for a firefighter to, he won't get in there, bottom line. And that's the reason that we have a 5-foot. And, you know, the difference between 3 foot when you're trying to get in there to do something in an emergency and 5 foot is huge. And as I said, you know, our decision, there are a lot of no's here. And our decision determines whether or not he gets to go and plead his case to the other board, basically. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So if there's not any other questions, I'll entertain a motion. Which way y'all feel best?
It's your turn.
So if it would
I
make,
move we approve it. And then let the P and Z boys deal with it. I mean, it's gotta have to be done one way or the other, right? I mean, we don't have to approve it and stop right here. But we need to go ahead and give him a chance. You know, I'm a firm believer in custom-built homes. But, you know, that's because it affects me personally. Now, I can see if you're talking about a trailer house.
And the other side of that is that the pre-manufactured homes, or whatever you call them, they're built to meet code requirements. I mean, they're not like the 76 ones. They're a little bit better built. And so there again, you know, it's up to the board, however y'all feel comfortable. I do just have to note that there's a lot of people in the neighborhood that are against that, and, you know, it does have to go to another board. My concern is the 3 foot difference between the yards. If the one side lets it grow up with a lot of weeds and stuff, then, you know, there is a possibility of, you know, fire moving to the next property rapidly. So that's my comments.
so there also would be the option of moving that variance to the McGee Street side. And therefore they could get the 5 foot between them and the neighbors and less on the front, because that McGee Street is a wide right of way. And so I believe you have an option there as well. Like he said, anything that's gonna extend out past the front, the side edge of that manufactured house, well, he's not gonna have anything. He's gonna have it on the Monroe side, and he's got a lot more depth that way to deal with.
So do you have any concerns with moving it toward the McGee Street with traffic, visibility or otherwise at the intersection?
I mean, it's a difference of 2 feet. So,
If they make us move garage sale signs that are blocking less than 2 feet on the corners, then a whole house should make a big difference.
I'm talking from the property line,
Yeah, from the
not from the curb.
But still,
So,
it can make a difference for the safety.
So how far would the curb, from the curb to the house, if we give a variance on the McGee Street side, how far from the curb to the side of the house would it be?
I didn't get the measurements, but this is an educated guess, is that from the back of the curb, well, y'all may even know yourselves because y'all dealt with that.
What the code says on McGee Street, when we did our front porch, you have to measure from the middle of the street, and you can't be closer to the middle of the street. You have to have, I think, so many feet. I was able to build a 9-foot porch, but I'd be cutting it really close. So we built a 7-foot front porch at my house. when we put up the fence, I asked Mr. Bird if he thought I could get a variance because on the house, on the corner of Monroe and McGee also, right across the street from him. The existing fence had been here. The code says we have to have 12 feet from the curb to put the fence. I
Because
asked
that's where
Mr.
the property line is.
Because that's where from the property.
That's kind of would have been my educated guess was.
Yeah.
12
So I
feet
asked
behind.
Mr. Bird if he thought I could get a variance on a fence. He said, very rarely do we grant variances on corner lots because it can affect visibility. And my neighbor behind the house has a driveway that goes out to Monroe. And even though she had pine trees that blocked, would have been as far out as the fence, we moved the fence in, even though the existing fence had been further out, because that's what the ordinance says.
Right, right.
And I think the ordinances were put there for a reason, and they should be honored. That's just my
Yes, ma'am.
opinion.
So, I mean, so you stating that, then what's gonna go there ever?
Well, at the time, I had asked you if you knew.
No, I'm just asking you, on this lot that we're dealing with, what would ever go there? Is it
We
gonna
were
remain a
gonna try and
vacant lot
buy the
forever?
lot. I didn't even know Mr. Jett had bought the lot, because you had mentioned to me, why don't you buy that property and clean it up? Because you guys do such a good job of keeping up your yards and everything. And I told you it would be great, my grandkids can go play over there. We can just set up a couple of garages to cover the, that would fit in. So I went to the appraisal district. The appraisal district lists that property, and we looked it up again yesterday, as belonging to a man named Eusebio something or other out of Puerto Rico.
They just haven't updated their site yet.
Exactly, but how long has it?
I called them
Yes, sir.
directly and.
But
It's updated.
we could never reach him. We could never reach him. It's a good thing Mr. Jett found him, I understand what he's trying to do for his family, but I'm also worried about what's in the best interest of me and my family.
So, but I still go back to the fact, what is ever gonna go on this lot? Is it gonna remain a vacant lot?
A
for
home can be
weeks?
built on there, Mr.
You're
Bird.
still gonna have the same type of variances.
It
Well,
depends on
what's
the
what's
size of
on
home.
the
You-
next block over, the 420 Jackson and McGee?
It's 2 apartments and a house that sits on there.
It's the same size lot, I'm just curious, what's
It's a little
sitting there?
house.
No, it's a little house.
It's a little house,
Actually,
and that was
it's,
what used to be on that property, was a very little house.
It was a shotgun house.
Okay.
it was a
Gotcha.
side-to-side house, a really little.
And that would
And that
be
was
just
probably
building
the
codes
reason-
now, because you can't go from one bedroom to another, without a hallway. And that's what I'm saying. About anything that you do there is gonna require some kind of variance on that lot.
Not if you just keep the lot and keep it clean, which I'm willing to do, to keep the.
But you don't own the property.
Exactly, I don't own the property. And even though I tried, I wasn't able to communicate myself, and luckily he did.
That
And
property's been listed on Facebook property.
Actually,
Facebook
Mr.
Marketplace
Jets,
for
I don't do
visibility.
Facebook, I don't do Twitter, I don't do Snapchat, okay? I go to my city officials, I go to the appraisal district who's supposed to give me the correct information. Because you can't trust anything, in my opinion, because you can post anything on the internet.
Okay, do you have some comment?
I'm just gonna say honestly, I don't see anyone building a home on that property. The property on the other end of that corner is currently boarded up. The yard is maintained, but the building that's on the other side street, not the McGee side, but the other side of the block of, I'm not sure. what
It's
that
420
section-
Jackson.
Yeah.
And yes, the house is boarded up because the gentleman just bought that property a couple of years ago. It's the house and 2 apartments. We've seen him working, those apartments are completely refurbished. But this gentleman works out of town, so he boarded it up because we kept calling the police, because a bunch of the druggies kept breaking into that house and stuff. And that property at one time belonged to my sister. And she left and abandoned it. She kept the apartments rented. She would just come in and collect the rent. And it was a family argument because she wouldn't cut the yard. It affected all of us in the neighborhood. So we were over there cleaning up, and we were constantly calling the police because these druggies were getting into this apartment. This gentleman finally brought it. And he's bringing everything up to code because he's been remodeling, he's got windows in those apartments, he's gone in, sheet rock and everything. I think they're both rented now. His next project is that house. And he does keep up the yard because he comes in. But when you work a full-time job and if you're working out of town in construction, you can only do so much at a time. It's not something, and it, like Mr. Jett said, it costs a lot of money. And you guys know, it costs money to refurbish
Okay.
homes. But
So-
he's trying to refurbish them.
Thank you. So those are our options, and I've expressed my concerns, so we have a motion to approve.
I have a question. If we grant the setback, can it be applied to the
McGee side.
McGee side instead of the,
It depends on what y'all's motion is.
okay.
Well, let's see. I need to reword this, right?
You need to
Yeah.
withdraw your
No, I'm
motion.
just saying- I'm
Yeah,
just
I can
giving you-
withdraw it and then we can
I'm
make
just
a
giving
new.
y'all the option if y'all are concerned about the manufactured house being too close to the next.
And the city doesn't have any concerns with
I mean,
traffic flow.
It's kind of
No,
hard
they
to tell
don't.
in
You
this
can
picture, but I
see
really
these
thought that there
four-way
was a
stops.
driveway there, but maybe.
No, may have to put one there.
That street itself, McGee Street, that's where all our high school kids go, and down to the baseball field. That street is traveled, that is like a main road of Borger. I live right there, like there is,
Yeah.
that is high traffic.
I understand.
You know, I realize we're talking about, you're talking about what they're doing in these apartments, and this guy wants to, you know, and these guys come in here and they have, boy, I mean, they've got ideas, they're gonna make money off them contractors. And,
There's a
It
lot
don't
of
work.
houses like that in
it
Borger.
don't work. Because they're gonna tear them up, because they don't care.
And a lot of the rental properties that the contractors use are people from Borger who bought the houses. A lot of people, whether it's Mag or it's tenants or whoever, own a lot of properties. And I know Mr. Berg is on them constantly because they let them get run down. But if you hit them in their pocketbook and you make it, you know,
You see, I run a lawn care service, and I take care of some of the businesses around here, because I want Borger to look beautiful, like I made my house.
But it ain't
look
going
beautiful,
to.
Like I've seen my parents do.
Not with all
And
the
that's all
drug
we
use
want.
here.
We do want beauty. And I don't have a problem with what he's doing. Build a home like we did, or fix a home. That way it can hold its resale value. That way it makes Borger look beautiful.
and Mr. Jett doesn't.
Have you looked at that option?
Honestly, I tried and looked, it's going to be $300,000 to $400,000.
Yeah, the price of wood.
Yeah, lumber has gone up exponentially because of all the hurricanes.
So you are locked in at a price you can afford with the manufactured home?
Yes.
Okay.
But we also have properties in Borger that are big and out at the country club and other areas that you can buy a home for that amount of price and a big piece of them too. There's a big house down the street on the corner of Roosevelt and McGee that's been sitting empty that Rope and Danica completely regutted and remodeled for $180,000.
But is it handicap accessible?
It has a ramp in the front.
Okay, but does it mean it has the handicap toilets,
I'm not.
the shower? That's what I'm having done. This house is going to be handicap accessible.
Yes,
I have-
and the inside of the house is gonna be perfect for your mom, but because you're gone all the time, who's gonna?
My mom has been living in the same
Yes,
1996
and
Champion mobile home.
there are people in Florida and here in Texas and in Arizona who have.
Well, we're
lived
not,
in
wait,
the-
hold, wait a minute. We're not here to,
Yes, sir.
to listen to your arguments amongst yourselves. We're here to make a decision on whether or not we're gonna grant a variance to put a larger home than the lot is designed for. Let's just put it that way. So.
I
We
withdrew my motion.
we don't have a motion at this time. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Come on, Mark.
picture pulled up here? Can you,
Um,
because I really think that y'all should look at this.
Can you put it on the screen up there?
I don't know how to put it on the screen up there. I'm gonna blow it up here and turn it toward y'all.
So, this being the lot right here, this is the extra 10 feet that he has to equal 40 feet. And then see how they have the driveway on that side right there?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was talking about, that there's already kind of a buffer there. And as in most of the general residential areas, before they could build something over that driveway, more than likely they would have to ask for a variance as well, because that driveway is narrow. I mean, you can tell that it's
Yep, it
about
is.
the width of the vehicle.
Yep.
So, any 10-foot type carport,
Good
You can see my semi picture.
How are you gonna move it up there?
So that's a lot at the right there, now it's centered up.
That did deteriorate if he's got a handicapped mother that's living there.
Well, it's up there, one smaller.
Small, big old.
There we go.
There you go.
So what's the box drawn in on the lot? Is that,
that's the actual lot. So see, right, the black line on this side,
yeah,
that's the actual property line. And
gotcha,
that's, because that's how wide McGee Street right of way is.
gotcha.
And so all this is, from the curb into here is right of way width.
Right. Okay.
So
What do you think?
Is
that's
there
what I'm
any
saying, the
reason why
concerns
he
from,
would not want to do the 3-foot setback from the street sides?
The McGee Street side?
Yeah,
I think it would be better if we did it that way. And we can stipulate that by whatever motion we get approved, if it or don't get approved.
now, you know, not all street widths are that wide, but McGee Street is.
Right.
Look at Grand. Grand's about a 3
Mr.
streets.
Jeff also said he purchased 3 properties, and all 3 properties, neither, including this one, is built, is wide enough for what he was gonna buy. Why didn't he inform himself so we wouldn't be dealing with this issue?
Well,
We're not here to be concerned about that. What if we make a motion to approve with the stipulation that if need be or he, you know, decides to do it, that the variance applies to the McGee side?
Okay.
Is that worded all right?
so we have a motion that the setback would be off of McGee Street, rather than between the properties on Monroe.
I'll
3 feet
second
off
that.
McGee.
So he'd be 3 feet off of his front property line on McGee, and then 5 feet off of the
Right.
back property line.
Right.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any discussion?
Opposed?
Opposed?
They're not voting.
2 votes. Did anybody else vote?
No, they
How many yays do we have?
We have 2 yays
Polly and I.
and 2 no votes at this time.
I abstain. Or recuse, or something.
Okay, you abstain?
I have the same concerns as you. I also have the same concerns with the no's, and I know that's not our committee. That's what I'm struggling with.
To understand. That's the reason I brought it up.
and then it's gonna be discussed at the next committee,
Yes.
really whether it goes forward or
And
not.
the council is the one that'll have the final say.
Okay.
We're not
So-
We can do our
Not
due
on the
diligence.
variance,
But,
None of the
yeah,
variance.
but on the specific
Okay.
use to be able to
So we have-
allow a manufactured house to be set on any property, it has to go through a specific use permit process. They first meet with planning and zoning. Planning and zoning gives their recommendation one way or another to city council, and then council has final say of whether that specific use for a manufactured house is permitted.
So we have a motion that's passed by 3 votes.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
she voted
Yeah.
aye. Yay. So the variance will be on the McGee Street side rather than the Monroe side there. And you'll still get to make your argument with the
Yes.
planning and zoning board and,
Because I'm not the only member in the neighborhood who doesn't want this anymore.
sure,
Because it will affect-
understand.
It will affect all of us.
We, our,
And I'm sure you wouldn't want a manufactured home in your neighborhood where they're not zoned.
our mission here is
Yes, sir.
to look at the property and how the property lays and decide on the variance. I understand, and as I expressed, is, you know, our determination could determine whether he or not, he gets to go to the next board or not.
Yeah.
However, we looked, you know, at what we're required to do, and we feel that we've come to a good solution for what our mission is, as far as the variance goes. And you will have an opportunity to bring your concerns, and please make sure that everybody's notified before the next meeting of the planning and zoning, so they can hash that out.
The notice has been in the paper for both of them.
Okay.
Everybody takes the paper.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
So will their letters be sent out
Yes, they have been sent in, well,
for the planning and zoning meeting?
pretty sure I sent them out, yes.
Okay. And I guess you can notify your neighbors when you,
And these will be used again. I mean, these will go to P and Z also.
yeah,
Their complaints will go to P and Z also.
okay.
Yeah, and that's our concern. We want, just like the gentleman on 420 that he mentioned, that the lot 50, we're trying to get people to move into the neighborhood. We're gonna keep us the homes. And we don't want any more manufactured homes, period. And even though it was zoned for manufactured homes at one time, now you have to get a special permit to bring one in. What's the reason behind that? Because of all the manufactured homes that are already there. that are-
Those laws, I feel, are there for a reason. They shouldn't be changed for anyone, because they're never changed for us.
Well, like I said, our mission here was to just decide whether or not we could safely place the building on the property. And you can make those arguments with the planning and zoning, and that is their venue. Okay?
We appreciate y'all taking the time.
Yes.
Yeah,
And thank you for hearing that.
you can understand that it was a struggle
And
for
I can
the board to
understand
determine.
Mr. Jeff's position because I took care of my mother, and I commend him for that. But he has to understand where we're coming from. As much money as
Sure.
I've invested in my home, you know, and my son's home, and between our little property is this little trailer house that I stupidly sold, and now it's so deteriorated that the young lady who lives there is awesome. Okay? She's wonderful. She's a single mother. She can't live with that. If anything happens to Mr. Jeff, there's no way his mom will be able to upkeep that mobile, ever. And his job, like my son's job, is a very dangerous job on the road. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Thank y'all.
Thank you so
And I'll
much.
take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.